The prince and the pedophile. The palace under pressure. The victims. The allegations. The facts. Now, Sky News investigates. Prince Andrew. A royal scandal.
We turn next to a controversy shaking Britain's royal family.
More controversy about his links with a convicted paedophile.
A woman has alleged in papers filed in Florida that she was forced to have sex with Andrew when she was 17.
Any suggestion of impropriety with underage minors is categorically untrue.
He knows exactly what he's done, and I hope he comes clean about it.
I think it's hard to look at that picture and say that you had no idea that she was young.
That's extraordinary that somebody who is a Prince of England would go and meet with somebody who has these convictions.
His brand, Britain, going to be affected by this, as well as his own brand.
My focus is on my work.
There is a feeling among the UK public that it's been too little too late.
He did say he likes to be loyal to his friends, but I'm wondering how loyal he's feeling at the moment.
He just may be a prince in exile in his own country.
The British prince and the convicted pedophile. It's a connection which has shocked and disturbed. And new details suggest the connection may be deeper than first thought. Prince Andrew, the Queen's second son, had a relationship with Jeffrey Epstein which spanned decades. Epstein died in a prison cell earlier this year, years after being convicted for underage sex and awaiting trial on new sex trafficking charges. He was carrying out these depraved acts while schmoozing the prince. Prince Andrew was also accused in court documents of engaging in underage sex and participating in orgies on Epstein's private island. They're accusations he and Buckingham Palace vehemently deny, and which the judge hearing the case struck from the court record. Sky News does not suggest guilt on the royals' behalf, but this Epstein royal connection demands scrutiny. Tonight we'll explore Prince Andrew's history of controversies, what he knew of Epstein's lewd illegal behaviour, and the claims the royal may have been a target in an international sex blackmail racket. With the help of a range of experts, we'll attempt to answer just how deep was the connection between the pedophile and the prince. His life was destined to be scrutinised. Even before he could walk, he was paraded before the cameras. Andrew Albert Christian Edward, the third child and second son to Queen Elizabeth, would spend much of his childhood in castles.
8-year-old Prince Andrew joined the Cub Scouts 6 months ago. Like all the rest, he must pass muster at the inspection by Akela, the Cub leader.
Dubbed the spare heir, he was never likely to rule. He's further slipped in succession in recent years, but is believed to have always been number one in his mother's eyes.
He was born after a long hiatus, after Charles and Anne were born, and then many years lapsed, and then Andrew came along, and then Edward. It's often been felt that Prince Andrew is perhaps the Queen's favourite child. Her face certainly lights up and dances when he's with her. She absolutely adores him.
His 23 years in the Royal Navy saw him serve with distinction in the Falklands War. The British tabloids also reported salacious stories involving the sailors' shore leave.
Prince Andrew, he's been called Randy Andy. There was a headline the other week where it was claimed that he'd had sex with 1,000 women. He'd met lots of people around the world. He'd been a sailor. There's stories in the press about how one of his first trips to port, when he went straight to a strip club, and the stripper in that establishment then changed the name of her act to the Prince Andy Eye Popper.
The Duke of York was also rumoured to be romantically connected to several famous women, and holidayed in the Caribbean with American actress Koo Stark. He later put the party lifestyle behind him, married, and upon retiring from the military, accepted a role as a UK trade envoy. He was tasked with travelling the world to spruik British business opportunities.
One started to build up relationships with leaders, business leaders, influential people in other countries. And it's the ability now to open the doors and to give the access to business at whatever size be it the FTSE Top 100 or be it a small and medium-sized enterprise, to get them in the door.
He has travelled a huge amount working on behalf of Britain. Some would suggest perhaps working on behalf of Andrew as well, but his nickname is Air Miles Andy because he has travelled so much. Perhaps he has pulled in the rights to travel on funded travel schemes, perhaps too often, because he tends to get private jets absolutely everywhere and make use of the Queen's helicopter and anything he can. He does work very hard for Britain, but it's also not been without its advantages, certainly.
His jet setting on the public purse was tabloid fodder.
Air Miles Andy and his travel spend have been controversial, too costly, say some, for years.
And his dealings with unscrupulous characters raised serious red flags.
As a royal and in his role, he was naturally exposed and a bit vulnerable to perhaps some less than reputable types of people. He hasn't, of all the royals, he's perhaps made some of the less sound choices about whom he should work with and do deals with or be involved with in any way.
Prince Andrew met with the son of Libyan dictator Muammar Gaddafi in 2007, took a Tunisian holiday paid for by a convicted Libyan gun smuggler, hosted a business lunch at Buckingham Palace for an accused money launderer, and sold one of his homes to the son-in-law of Kazakhstan's ruler.
The fact is that in trade, outside of sanctions, you trade with countries whether they're good or bad, and you have to deal with the governments of those countries if you're a diplomat, as our prime ministers do, as our ministers of trade do, as our public servants do, so did Prince Andrew.
The prince is said to have generated millions of dollars of investment in the UK. His work, promoting startups and charities, has also been widely praised.
Prince Andrew has proved himself to be a very courageous man and also one who is obviously intelligent and very able to do functions for which he has been appointed. But of course, at the same time, we have to remember there's always there in the tabloid press a desperate need to produce royal scandal, even if it is completely untrue.
That scandal, perhaps the biggest Prince Andrew's encountered, led him to resign as trade envoy in 2011. It also led Buckingham Palace to take unprecedented measures amid incredible public pressure. The scandal tying the royal family to a billionaire child sexual abuser. Attending exclusive parties, buying private islands, and living in lavish overseas mansions. This was the life of Jeffrey Epstein in the late 90s. With the help of the boss of Victoria's Secret, the former maths teacher rose to an uber-wealthy and well-connected financier. He boasted about being a collector of powerful friends, and in 1999 he eyed a prized addition to a contact list which already included Hollywood and Wall Street elites. At the London home of mutual friend and philanthropist Ghislaine Maxwell, Jeffrey Epstein met Prince Andrew.
It seems from the evidence that Mr. Epstein was very good at meeting very, very famous people. He courted a very international and starstruck crowd, and they were drawn to his enormous wealth and to his parties and to the glamour lifestyle he seemed to offer. They like to attract royalty because royalty opens doors in business in ways that perhaps more common mortals can't do.
Prince Andrew later said he stayed at Epstein's homes several times, and flight records submitted in a civil suit against Epstein show the prince travelled on Epstein's private plane from his private island to the US mainland in 1999. While Epstein was schmoozing Prince Andrew and others, he was also using his power and wealth to abuse the vulnerable, luring young women, some underage, into his homes, paying them for massages, which would often turn to forced sex.
And he, very forcefully kind of brought me to the table, and I just did what he told me to do. I was really scared. I was terrified, and I was telling him to stop. Please stop, you know?
And did he?
No, he did not stop. He had no intentions of stopping, and that's what he wanted, that's what he got.
Investigators raided his Florida home, where pictures of naked young women adorned the walls. They identified at least 40 alleged victims. One was just 14 years old. Among them, Virginia Roberts Giuffre.
The training started immediately. I mean, it was everything down to how to be quiet, be subservient, give Jeffrey what he wants. You're screaming on the inside and you don't know how to let it come out. And you just become this numb figure who refuses to feel and refuses to speak and refuses. All you do is obey. That's it.
She claims Epstein used her as a sex slave and instructed her to have sex with powerful men, including the man pictured with his hand on her 17-year-old waist in 2001.
Buckingham Palace has issued a strongly worded denial that Prince Andrew was involved in any impropriety after he was named in American court documents related to a convicted paedophile.
This relates to a long-standing and ongoing civil proceedings in the United States to which the Duke of York is not a party. As such, we would not comment on the detail. However, for the avoidance of doubt, any suggestion of impropriety with underage minors is categorically untrue.
The judge in the Epstein civil suit rejected the claims regarding the prince, deeming them immaterial and impertinent to the case, striking them from the court record. 3 years later, in 2008, Epstein was behind bars, convicted for soliciting sex with a minor, but given a dubiously lenient sentence of just 18 months. Soon after he was released and had returned to New York, he was snapped, strolling through Central Park with Prince Andrew.
Now that's extraordinary that somebody who is the Prince of England would go and meet with somebody who has these convictions. Now he was convicted of procuring sex with an underage girl, and there were other charges that were dropped. So you've got to question Prince Andrew's decision-making in this matter.
The image ignited a firestorm of outrage. The UK public demanded to know why a royal remained close with a convicted paedophile.
I was quite surprised by Andrew's decision to keep doing that. He did say he likes to be loyal to his friends, but I'm wondering how loyal he's feeling at the moment.
A controversy shaking Britain's royal family. Prince Andrew accused in a lawsuit of inappropriate relations with an underage girl. Buckingham Palace forcefully denying the bombshell allegations.
He stood down as UK trade envoy as more Epstein-related allegations surfaced.
More potentially damaging revelations even today, though. The latest, that Prince Andrew's ex-wife was given £15,000 by his American friend Jeffrey Epstein to pay off some of her debts. That friend, a convicted sex offender, whose involvement with underage girls is even now being investigated by the FBI.
People have lost respect for him, regardless of whether they believe the allegations against him or not.
Is brand Britain going to be affected by this, as well as his own brand, and indeed, of course, the very important brand that is the royal family?
The public pressure forced the palace to do the unprecedented. It released 4 statements denying Prince Andrew did anything improper, and the prince himself fronted the press.
I think I must want, for the record, to refer to the events that have taken place in the last few weeks. And I just wish to reiterate and to reaffirm the statements which have already been made on my behalf by Buckingham Palace. My focus is on my work.
His Epstein connection cost him a high-profile position and his standing among the British public. But this saga is yet to be resolved. The Queensland-based mother is demanding justice from a royal.
The woman who claims she was forced to have sex with Prince Andrew called on the Duke to, in her words, come clean.
What do you make of Prince Andrew's denials? Can you comment on that?
He knows exactly what he's done, and I hope he comes clean about it.
Virginia Roberts Giuffre claims Jeffrey Epstein made her have sex with Prince Andrew 3 times in London, New York, and on Epstein's Caribbean island when she was 17 years old.
He can't say he didn't know her. He can't say he wasn't friendly with her. I think it's hard to look at that picture and say that you had no idea that she was young.
It's an accusation first levelled at the prince more than 10 years ago. New court proceedings following Jeffrey Epstein's death have brought it back to the fore. Virginia's lawyer told Sky News the prince refused requests for an interview.
If he would sit down and talk to us and let everything come out, and as our client said yesterday, just come clean. This is the time to do it. Continuing to delay and obfuscate, I don't think really is in his interest, because this is not going away. There's too much evidence here for the allegations simply to go away.
He points to this video, filmed in 2010, showing Prince Andrew inside Epstein's New York mansion.
That is simply another illustration of the fact that Prince Andrew and Jeffrey Epstein were very close. He was at the mansion, he was very comfortable. He knew that there were young women coming and going. The testimony of people who were at the mansion is that nobody could be at that mansion and not understand that Jeffrey Epstein had a number of unusual relationships with young women.
In a statement, Prince Andrew said, "I met Mr. Epstein in 1999. During the time I knew him, I saw him infrequently and probably no more than only once or twice a year. I have stayed at a number of his residences. At no stage during the limited time I spent with him did I see, witness, or suspect any behaviour of the sort that subsequently led to his arrest and conviction. I deplore the exploitation of any human being and would not condone, participate in, or encourage any such behaviour."
The way that Prince Andrew has responded to these very serious allegations of his association with a convicted paedophile who has now killed himself in a jail in New York is just beyond belief. He has put out public statement after public statement where he has said that he has been appalled by any action that would degrade another human being. But then why did he go and meet with Mr. Epstein after he had been convicted, after he had been to jail, after the world had known what was going on inside Mr. Epstein's home?
Prince Andrew's nationality and royal status make this a complex legal situation. Ms. Robert Jufrey's team is exploring options to compel him to speak. It's clear, for her, this isn't over.
The latest scandal, like so much of the Me Too movement, relates to guilt by association. He is being threatened by a lady who is relying on guilt by association. All sorts of people have been associated with Jeffrey Epstein, the Clintons, and various other people in America and in the United Kingdom and other countries. But guilt by association proves absolutely nothing.
Prince Andrew is adamant he did nothing illegal, and some even suggest he may actually be a victim, not of abuse, but of an elaborate blackmail scheme commonly used by spies. One of New York's largest private properties houses so many secrets. Jeffrey Epstein's Manhattan mansion has hosted many parties and prominent figures, and it's allegedly where dozens of young women were sexually abused. Award-winning foreign correspondent Eric Margolis has been behind these doors. He was invited to one of Epstein's events in the early 90s.
I'll tell you what was the oddest thing for me was soon after we had arrived, one of his people came up to me and said, "Would you like a massage?" And I was extremely taken aback by this. This is highly unusual, and certainly not what you do in the early evening in Manhattan. It made me, as an old Moscow journalist, it immediately put up my antenna and made me, the word honey trap came into my mind.
A honey trap is a method of using attractive women to lure powerful men into compromising situations, recording their encounter and using the recording as blackmail.
All the major intelligence services use this technique. The Americans have used it extensively. The Russians were notorious for doing it. In Moscow, they had these special ladies whose names were swallows, after birds, that were good at enticing people. They even tried to entice me, and I said, sure, take photos, give me copies, I want for my friends.
Authorities reportedly discovered video cameras and microphones inside Epstein's properties. And the former prosecutor, who dropped several charges against Epstein in 2008, was quoted as saying he believed Epstein belonged to intelligence.
If you look back into the history of Epstein, he definitely has ties in his past to CIA front companies like Southern Air Transport, as well as figures that were on both the payroll of the CIA and the Mossad. There seems to be a lot of indications that what Alex Acosta was saying is accurate, and that what he was doing with these girls wasn't just sexual exploitation for his own personal appetites, I guess you could say, but was really an intelligence agency involving sexual blackmail operations, which the CIA has engaged in since it was founded in the late 40s.
If Epstein was indeed involved with honey trapping, it would give the multi-millionaire incredible leverage and perhaps make him too powerful to be allowed to talk in a criminal trial.
As an old warhorse in these matters, I don't believe for a moment that he committed suicide. I think it's extremely difficult to do that from a prison bunk, to hang yourself. He may have broken his neck, but I think it's more likely that he was killed. And the initial reports were they heard screaming in there, and he was a man who knew too much. And the old pirate line of dead men tell no tales certainly applied to Epstein.
The British royal family is said to represent what is good and proper. Its members not only wield ultimate political authority in Australia and other Commonwealth nations, but the royals also set a cultural tone. Suggestions of a royal family member's possible knowledge of a pedophile's sex trafficking network are sure to impact its image.
The royal brand has been significantly damaged by this whole affair. Prince Andrew has brought the royal family into disrepute, and it doesn't appear that it will go away anytime soon. What he should do is submit himself to the FBI and give a full statement to the authorities to try and show some level of concern and action.
Prince Andrew continues to carry out public engagements, just days ago attending a rowing regatta for which he's a patron. The Duke also remains a patron of several UK charities.
Buckingham Palace have obviously seen that they don't at this stage think that there's anything that should warrant him standing down from his role. But there are calls here. One royal author is saying that the prince should perhaps step down from royal duties until these claims are resolved.
The better thing to do would be to continue, as he's doing now, stand down from nothing. If there's no truth in the allegations, to continue to deny them.
Though Prince Andrew isn't the only royal affected by this intense public pressure stemming from the Epstein saga.
Princess Beatrice and Princess Eugenie are very, very popular modern royals. You know, we see a lot of them in public. They're very sort of embedded amongst UK celebrity culture, very popular princesses who are seen to do, very good work for the monarchy. And for them, these allegations against Prince Andrew are going to be very difficult to deal with. There were already reports last week that Princess Eugenie had delayed the start of a podcast that she had wanted to launch around modern slavery because of the allegations against, Jeffrey Epstein and that world that her father was tied up in. So I think Prince Andrew will be thinking about that and how, this story could affect the life of his daughters in the UK.
The royal family has seen its fair share of scandals over the years, but this one could effectively forever sideline the prince.
Prince Charles has said he would like a slimline monarchy when he takes over in case of the Queen's death. And so you've got to question what role he would play publicly following that succession. Now, he's not going to lose his title as a prince, but he just may be a prince in exile in his own country.